All right, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You're listening to WRUU 107.5 FM, Savannah, Georgia. I'm your host, Adam Messer, and this is Muses, Memoirs, and More. And I have a super awesome guest today. His name is Gary John Bishop. He is an urban philosopher and an author. He's also like just a super down-to-earth guy. And Gary, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Wonderful, Adam. Thanks for having me. And, for those that might be wondering already, yeah, it's a Scottish accent. So.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I'll be honest with you, being here in Savannah, we actually have a lot of people that come from all over the world. And, especially with tourism and stuff like that. And Savannah, I don't know if you know or not, but is the oldest planned city in the U.S.
Mm-hmm.
So it's cool. I love the accent. So
good. But, yeah. All right. Well, that's a good start.
Yeah. So, everybody, little background here. I picked up Gary's books. The first one is Unf Yourself. I can't, for the community radio station here, I really can't say the correct title, but you get the point. And then the next one that he has out right now is Stop Doing That Stuff. So
shampoo.
Yeah, the shampoo. But basically, your books are I know they're in the self-development category, but I mean they're definitely not life coaching, and they're definitely not like, hey, positive, think your way out of these problems kind of books.
No. And in fact, in some ways, that my whole approach is in some kind of rebellion to that, right? Given I'm Scottish, you like a good old-fashioned rebellion. So, particularly the first book, Unbleep Yourself, I wrote that book because every book that I'd ever kind of seen in self-help, and I didn't read too many of these books, I would have to admit. The title enough was to put me off. But I just it didn't speak to me, didn't talk to me. I didn't see any books that would compel me to pick it up. And there seemed to me there was a lot of foo-foo, a lot of just basically smoke and mirrors about unleashing your greatest self and, the spirit animal within. And, just none of it just resonated with me. I don't know how, unleashing the spirit within helps me when I've just lost my job or something. And I wanted to give people a book that they could read, and it actually not only spoke to them in the way that you and I would talk, right, rather than some flowery way of putting it. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I could really use it. I could actually use this book to, like I said, further my career, change my relationship, impact my finances, my body. Like, how do I deal with myself? And that's been my approach ever since. It's to give people this access to some of the great wisdoms, by the way, that are around. But for some reason or other, we can't seem to use them too easily. And I see that in a lot of ways as my job is to deliver people this stuff that they can use it and it makes sense. And, you don't have to turn yourself into a unicorn to do it.
Yeah, a unicorn. I'll tell you, one of the things, like I've told a bunch of people that I know about both of the books. And the first one kind of reminds me of like how you can just get out of your own head. And
right.
The second one really reminds me of like, okay, well, here's the nuts and bolts and the gritty, like your conversations that you're having with yourself are a lot of your own self-sabotage.
Right.
Right.
Yeah. And I'd had that problem. I wrote the first book and it was about, first of all, coming to terms with it. You talk to yourself.
Yeah.
And how to interrupt some of that. But I had a number of people say to me, well, but why do I talk to myself that way? And what, because anybody who's listening to this right now, even if you're a particularly positive person, you still have those thoughts like, I can't, I don't know how, self-doubt, mm-hmm. I'm not good enough, I'm not smart enough. So I really wanted to give people an understanding with the second book. I wanted to give them a blueprint of why you talk to yourself the way that you do, number one. But two, what is your self-talk? Like, what's it based around? What's yours actually about? And in my view, if you know why the car isn't running, you now have a chance to fix it. But if you just blindly go along with a check engine light on, some days it's good, sometimes it's bad, And I would much rather get to the source of stuff to understand it in such a way that I can do something about it.
Oh, I completely agree with you. Matter of fact, where I work, there was a lady that she was talking about that very thing. A friend of hers and her husband, the lady's friend's husband, went on a trip, and they had a little carry behind camper on their truck, and they knew that one of the tires was bald, but they were like, well, we're gonna get it fixed after we get back from the trip. Well, unfortunately, they hit a bad spot on the interstate, and the trailer flipped, and the wife died from blunt trauma. And
Yeah.
that was a story that I heard that happened just a couple weeks ago. And
Yeah.
and that's probably an extreme example of what you're talking about, but when we ignore things that we know we should do, and that's one of the things I love about, like, so I bought the hard copies of the books, and then I bought the audio books, because one of the things I like is being able to hear the story in the author's voice.
Yeah.
And one of the things I loved about listening to you is I can not only hear what you're saying, I can feel that message. I can feel what you're,
Right.
I know that you've not only lived this, but this is your truth, but how you also genuinely want to help other people.
Yeah.
And that's something that
Yeah.
came across to me, that you have this strong desire to help other people kind of like unstick themselves from the trash that they're stuck in.
Right. Right. I mean, again, I'm from Glasgow, Scotland, so we know a shyster when we see one.
Yeah.
and I was never gonna. It just isn't in my DNA, if you like, to be anything other than just authentic, right?
Yeah.
And when I say authentic, I don't mean speak your mind. That's not authenticity. Some people think it is. There's a lot of stuff in your mind that should never be spoken, okay? But at the same time, there's my whole family has been grounded in this, just calling what's so here, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I got into the personal growth and development industry, and I stuck out pretty quickly. People like, oh, this guy's not the same, right? I mean, I don't wear chinos, I don't wear blazers, right? I don't wear loafers. I don't do the kind of typical big bright white smile, pointing the finger. It's not my thing, right? I'm more likely hanging around in a pair of torn jeans and an AC/DC t-shirt,
Right.
talking to you about why your life sucks.
I'm actually wearing a t-shirt and jeans and my Chucks right now.
All right, well, there you go. So, but it's important to me. I mean, I think about 10 years ago, I just had this massive realization that my life needs to be about something. I can't just keep ambling along here. And I was doing well. Like, life was going well. I was making money and my family was happy. But I noticed my life just wasn't about anything. It basically come down to, paying the bills and going on vacation and making sure your kid made the soccer team, And I just thought, there's nothing wrong with those things, but I can't have that be about my life. There has to be about something. And that's when I just, I threw myself fully into that. What my life's about is making a difference for people. That's it. That's what my life's about. And it's not about making money. I make money, but that's not what that's about. And I like making money. Money's awesome. It's very useful, very handy. But it's not why I do what I do. How do I know that? Because I was doing it for no money. Right. So I was doing it anyway. And then even since, like, the first book, I think, has sold close to 1.5 million copies.
Wow.
It's an international bestseller. It's, it's everywhere. It's the #1 selling audiobook that HarperCollins, my publishers, has in the world. So it's, the book's done amazing. And since then, a lot of people come to me actually and say, hey, let's do this and let's do that and let's do this and let's put this package together and you can make a lot of money. And I say no to all of it, because it's not about what I'm about. It's about making money. And that's not what I'm about. I'm about making a difference. And the first question I ask these people is, what difference does that make for the person who buys it? And they're like, well, we'll just put together a thing. I'm like, no, but it doesn't make a difference. It's just more corporate nonsense. It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't cut through what people need it to cut through. And so I've refused all of it. I won't do it. I'll only do things that I authentically feel as if somebody does this will make a difference for them. This will allow them to break free of something. And having that direction, if you like, having that kind of, or even foundation underneath everything that I do, I don't make many wrong decisions. The decisions that I make are grounded in some authentic expression of myself.
That, I think, is one of the things that I felt so touched with your work, because it sounded off for me. I mean, like, it just hit home for me. Like, okay, well, this is, because I've been into leadership and management and self-development for a long time, and there are a lot of people out there that do the, like what you're talking about. They do, the different styles or whatever, and and there's always some kind of new trend or whatever. And back in the day, my friends and I, we talk about, like, back when they had the gold rush. It wasn't the miners making the money; it was the people selling shovels and jeans.
Yeah. Sure.
And so I see a lot of shovels and jeans out there today, and there's a lot of miners, and they're buying this stuff, and sometimes they don't, when there's not a map or an action plan, or like hey, this is a practical how to, which your books are. It's like,
right.
hey, this is, not only am I telling you to get out of your own BS headset conversation, but here's how you can do it. Where a lot of people are just like,
and that's critical.
Yeah, a lot of people are just, a lot of the ones I've seen are just like, well, everybody's got problems, and we're victim culture and stuff. It's like, no, how do I get unstuck?
Right. Well, one that's always springs to mind for me. In fact, I'm going to deal with this in my next workbook, but which comes out in October. It's called Do the Work.
I love that.
One of the things that people will say is, "Oh, you should forgive that person," right? And so, that seems like good advice, right? I should forgive.
Right.
Or even, you should just accept that for how that is. But nobody actually tells you how to do that. Like, how do you forgive? Like,
right.
What are the steps?
Yeah.
I don't feel like I want to. Why don't I want to? Why wouldn't I? Like, what's in it for me? That's the sort of stuff that I'm passionate about. Is not only do I say to you, look, this might be an opportunity for you to actually forgive something, either of yourself or another, but here's how you do it. Yeah. This is how you forgive somebody or something. This is how you forgive it. This is how you release yourself. Or people say, well, how do I get over my past? I'll tell you how to do it. Honestly, lay it out. This is how you get over your past. It begins by confronting the idea that you're hanging on to it. Start with that. And then, I talk people through some of those things that we already know we should do, but we don't often know how to. Like, we are not imbued with the instruction manual, right? Life didn't come with that. Didn't come with, here's how you be a parent. This is how you be an adolescent. Hopefully you get those in the right order, by the way. This is how you deal with failure. This is how you deal with rejection. This is how you deal with depression. Like, there's no manual for that. It's all just stuff like, cheer up and keep trying and work harder. And it's like, hold on a minute. So I'm interested in people finally understanding themselves, how they work. Like, what is it? What's the machinery for you? What is it that makes you work the way you do? And how to have that go in a direction that's of your choosing, something you want to do, not something you were influenced to do, not something you were pushed to do, but something that's a reflection of your own self-expression.
I love that. And I follow you on social media. Most of the time I check out your stuff on Instagram, because it seems like you post a lot of stuff there. But when you're talking about that, I think in the book you talk about as well, the stories that we tell ourselves are like how we shape our viewpoints of things. And I noticed you had done something with Tony Robbins recently.
Yeah.
And that's one of his big things, is that we are the stories that we tell ourselves, and that we can rewrite our stories. And what I got as a reader, from your books, and especially listening to the audiobooks, and I paged through the books themselves, but the audiobook I just loved. But what I got out of that was listening to you. It's like, okay, like you just said, okay, well, there's no manual out there, but
Right.
you can model somebody else's behavior, as
Right.
somebody that's been through it, or like you've got a lot of clients, so maybe you didn't experience that firsthand, but you had a client that dealt with something, and you're like, okay, well, this is
Yeah.
how that person dealt with it.
Yeah. I don't want people to be left with that somehow I'm like, some sage for the ages or something.
Oh yeah, I'm sorry. I don't want to act like that. I'm just really impressed with how bottom line and down to earth you are with your stuff.
Yeah, but what I want people to get is, like I read, right, and most of what I read, I mean, I mostly won't read anything unless it's at least 100 years old. Right?
Oh wow.
I'm not really interested in somebody's millennial viewpoint on how to be successful or something. I'm just not. I dive into some of the old philosophers from the early 20th century all the way back to Stoic philosophy. Like, I'm interested in some of those more simplistic ways of looking at what it is to be a human being, and then seeing how that applies and doing the thinking. That's really the hard part.
Mm-hmm.
It's easy to read something. It's a whole other game to learn something. And we confuse those two. We think, well, I read it and I didn't get anything out of it. And what you really need to say is, I read it and I didn't learn anything, or I didn't do the thinking that would allow me to learn something. Somebody a long time ago told me you could learn something from reading the menu list at Starbucks. Right?
Yeah.
Right. And not just the price and sizes of the drinks, but rather you could learn something about organization. You could learn something about spacing. You could learn
Marketing
something about presence. There's a lot to learn in this world,
Right.
So I really want people to get, like, what I'm saying in my books and my whole approach. It's grounded in some pretty heavy duty philosophy, but at the same time, it's delivered in a way where it resonates, like it makes sense,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like, and it makes sense for you and your life, and to me, that's a critical component. It has to ring your bell, and if it rings your bell, we're in pretty good shape.
Yeah, I do love the quotes that you have in there. Like on the F Yourself book, page 9, it says the difference between success and failure. If human emotions largely result from thinking, then one may appreciably control one's feelings by controlling one's thoughts, or by changing the internalized sentences or self-talk with which one largely created the feeling in the first place. Quote by Albert Ellis.
Right.
And that one stuck out to me. I mean, and you put that right in the front of the book.
Right. So Albert Ellis is a really famous guy in psychology circles. Okay, so he's a really famous, well-known guy. He's, like, in many ways, he's the father of modern American psychology. But anyway, he says things a little different than I would, right? But he makes a brilliant point, and that is, whatever you're talking about, woven into that will be your experience of being alive.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're in the mode of complaint, you'll be in that space of frustration or anger or resignation or whatever that is. You don't complain about something with abundant joy, right? They don't go together.
Mm-hmm.
The link between human beings and what they talk about is unmistakable. Right now, I need to add a little something here, because I'm not talking about, well, you should just start talking positively.
Right.
And because it doesn't work, because it's not the truth for you. Right. So if you're in a suppressed state in life, if you're down, you'll notice internally what you're talking to yourself about isn't unicorns and rainbows.
Right.
You're in some dark conversation that matches that dark emotional state. You're in it. So people often say, well, how do I get out of it? Do I just tell myself everything's great when I think it's not? No, that's inauthentic. It's not true for you. It's not true. I say that part in quotes. It's not true for you. No, but you get into the sunlight. You actually start to realize what you're doing. Why am I indulging this talk? What's this about for me? When I'm indulging in this talk in my life is this way, what does it get me off the hook for? What do I get to throw my arms up and say, hey, I can't because blah, 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 blah. And sometimes, by the way, is who do I get to blame? Sometimes it's myself. Sometimes it's my parents. And I want people to wake up to not only that internal dialogue, but all the ways that they are consciously and otherwise using it to get themselves off the hook for how the life's going. You get to explain yourself. Anybody can explain the life. Anybody can, I'm not doing this because of X or Y or Z. I get that. But at the same time, if you're truly out to live a remarkable life, you're going to have to become a little more expert in you. You're going to have to be a little better at mastering yourself rather than explaining yourself.
Yeah, I noticed that with myself personally. I catch myself doing that too. The other day I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we hadn't talked in a while, and we were catching up, and I was just talking about this different industry that I work in now, and he was I said, I was talking and I didn't realize it, but he said to me, he said, you don't have to justify it. And I didn't even think about, and then when I was thinking about, like, afterwards about, what we were talking about, I was like, well, I guess it did sound like I was, kind of justifying it. Who am I justifying it to, him or myself?
Yeah. Well, we all come at life from a certain angle, right? We all come at life from a certain perspective. Mm-hmm. But a really fundamental one for us as human beings is we are in a constant state of managing how we look. And I don't mean physically. So we're managing how we look. So we're managing how we look when we talk to people. So we're saying, I did this, and let me tell you why I did it.
Yeah, that's exactly the conversation.
Right. And there could be two things behind that. One might be that I'm already doubting the validity of the thing that I did, so I need to explain it to you. But the other one is usually the most important one, which is I'm concerned for how I might look to you.
That's I'm just going to be brutally honest. I think that's what it was, because we used to work together at a university, and now I do industrial electrical work, and he's still working at a university, and I like what I do, and don't get me wrong, I might even be sounding like that right now, but but it's one of those things where I had to think about why was I hadn't seen the guy in a couple of years. I don't talk to him all the time. He's a friend of mine, but he's a casual friend.
Yeah, I would suspect it's two, actually both of them, right? And it's human. It's not. This isn't unique to you, right? This is you and everybody around you right now, and everybody listening to this right now, and me. Okay, this is what we do, right?
Yeah.
We have. I would suspect you already had the thought a while ago, like, am I doing the right thing, or could I be doing better, or should I? You've already had that thought.
Yeah, I have, and I think about that every day. Like, I think, like, am I doing the right thing?
Right. And so immediately we start thinking, well, if I tell this person, they're clearly going to think the same that I do. Right. So I should address this with you, right? And very often we do this in conversations, like we are strategizing the conversation based on what we think will happen. And we don't realize, like, the conversation is now organized around my vivid imagination rather than the conversation. Right, so it's got nothing to do with what's actually happening. Like, I used to coach coaches. Right? And that's a great passion of mine, is to coach people who coach. And included in some of those coaches were some pretty prestigious public speakers, coach them. And one of the things that they always came to me with was, how do I get better at public speaking? And I would say, well, you got to realize that before you walk in there, you already worked this out in your head. And they say, yeah, well, I know that. And I say, no, you already worked out who they are in your head. And you strategize the whole thing based on who you think they are. And if you tell yourself the truth about who you think they are, you'll actually see your whole strategy. And so they would, some things you would struggle with it, but often it would be a very similar answer when they started to tell the truth. I would say, who's the audience to you? And he would say, they're judgmental people. And I would say, that's right. And that's what you're strategizing against. You're going in there to talk to these judgmental people that you don't even know whether they are or they aren't. You just made that up.
Right.
Right. You just totally made that up. Here I am standing in front of 300 judgmental people, some of whom actually might be judgmental. Others might be thirsty for what you have to say.
Yeah.
But you're just going to talk to the judgmental ones. So, and then if you wrote, and again, as a kind of extension of that, what people find is if you're talking to judgmental people in your mind, you're proving yourself. So you're doing things and saying things to try and win them over without realizing that half of the people there might already be won over before you said hello.
That is very insightful. That is really insightful, because I can think back to how many different conversations that I've had like that. And, because this is really the first time someone ever had said, you don't have to justify it to me. Most of the time people are just pleasant and they're nice, and, they'll nod their head or they'll, agree with you. And, every once in a while, I'll get a friend of mine that'll check me on something, and I'm like, oh, wait a minute. I didn't even pay attention to that. I do that.
Yeah. Yeah. And the important thing to understand is that's a snapshot.
Right.
So if you consider the notion that you're having conversations throughout your life that are weaving a life that in many ways, and I'm saying this kind of in general terms to everybody that's listening, you're weaving a life, and you weave it every day. You're weaving a life that you don't like. So there I am explaining my life to these people that I don't like.
And sometimes explain it to yourself, and you're, like justifying it to yourself, right?
That's right. And but every time I do that, I embolden the life that I've got.
Mm-hmm.
So it gets more and more my life. It's more. So the more I talk about the mess that I'm in, I'm going deeper in.
Well, that's one of the things I love, Gary, about the Stop Doing That Stuff book, because you talk about the saboteurs.
Right.
And, the three saboteurs that, we all deal with. And it's not, just unique to you or me or anybody. It's everybody. Right. Everybody deals with the same thing. Even though they might not understand that's what it is, they're dealing with it.
Correct. Right. So,
well, can I just quote you on this book real quick? On page 136, it says, it takes as much effort to live a crappy life as it does a great one, and you're the only one who can choose which you want to live.
Right. Now, that's a kind of shocking statement to make, especially for people that are currently in a life that they feel is pretty crappy. But if you ask those people, I'll say, is this life easy? They'll say no. This is a hard life.
Mm-hmm.
This is a tough life to live. I mean, it's tough to live an $8.50 an hour life.
Mm-hmm.
That's a tough life to live. But at the same time, you have to realize that is what you're giving all of yourself to. Mm. You're giving all of yourself to $8.50 an hour. You're giving all of yourself to barely making your cable bill every month. You're giving all of yourself to having enough money to put gas in the car to get yourself to work. Like, that's where all your brain power is going, all of your energy, all of your thoughts. You're consumed by those things. My assertion is people are very powerful, right? And by the way, you'll notice you're winning at this crappy life, right? You are getting it done. It's not pleasant, but you're getting it done.
I love how you open the book with that, how we were winning whether we know it or not, and it's at that crappy life. I mean, that was what really got me into the audio book when I first started listening to Stop Doing That Stuff. Well, I'm obviously changing the word here, everybody, but that's what really sunk me in on this, not just the book, but I mean, just this whole philosophy of, okay, yeah, I'm here. How do I get to where I want to be? And really just stop doing that stuff.
Right. I mean, look, most of the people I've ever coached in my life, and it's been many, many, many thousands of people, like personally interacted with and coached, probably 50,000 people, right? That's not including the big events that I talk at. I don't include them. I'm talking about actually in workshops of person to person, about 50,000 people.
That is a lot of people, Gary.
It's a lot of people. You got to hear about a lot of lives, right? A lot of stuff that would make your toes curl. But anyway, when you start to get into it with people and you start to get them and they start to reveal their lives to you, and they do, and they reveal their deepest lives to you, the vast majority of those people are currently in a job that they think they can do. So that was the first parameter. I'm going to do a job that I think I can do, which includes earn what I think I can earn. And so they get that job and they do that thing. And they never stop for a moment to ask themselves, yeah, but how come I ended up with this? Like, where was I coming from that this was the obvious place for me to land?
Right.
How come I never landed on making $3,000 a week? How come I never? And if you say to people, why don't you just make $1,000 a week? You know, they have a nosebleed at the very thought because the brain can't take it. It's like, what do you mean 1,000? I'm making $280 a week right now. What are you talking about? Like, I can't 1,000. I'd have to work like 90 hours a week. And so I actually want people to understand, if you gave yourself the problem, and I really mean really gave it, and took the problem on, right? Like something for you to solve. A great one for people is if you say to them, especially for those that have kids, if your kid got sick and nobody knew what was going on, do you think you'd just sit back and go, oh, well?
Right.
Or would you be trawling through the internet day and night, going through books, going to the bookstore, talking to everybody like, what the heck is going on with my kid?
Yeah.
Right. Well, why don't you do that with your finances?
That is a big one.
Losing your mind with them, like this is unacceptable.
Right? I think that's a big one, Gary.
Tolerating this.
Yeah, I think that's a big one because it is one of those things like, okay, I've had enough, I'm fed up, and I'm going to change because I think people change because they're either afraid or they're forced to, like they have no alternative, and. Right. I think those are the two reasons why people usually change. And, when it comes to being stuck in a job or whatever, or, like you talk about marriages or relationships and all kinds of things in the book, it's about, hey, like you said, what are we telling ourselves? What is that story? I mean, like how, like in my case, how am I justifying that to myself and others? Like, what story am I telling people?
Right. I mean, human beings will make just about anything okay. Right? Just about anything.
Yeah.
Right?
Stockholm Syndrome or whatever, right?
It becomes so okay that you forget how not okay it actually is. Right? You end up just swimming in it. For you, it's just normal. Right? And I really mean that. Like, if you take it to the wildest extremes, like people that are spending 30 years in jail, after a while, if you ask them how is it, they'll tell you it's all right.
Yeah.
Now, that's not all of them, but a lot of them will. They'll go, I get fed, I watch TV, I work out. What else am I going to do? Right? Like they kind of like become conditioned to it. Like it takes them over. Right? So I want people to get like your life is more a function of what you're currently tolerating than what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And if you actually said to yourself, I'm unwilling to tolerate this anymore, like this is unacceptable to me, right? And I'm going to devote my life to changing it. And I really mean that. I mean devote. And devoting your life to something doesn't mean it's all you think about. It means it's basically all you do.
That is, I think, the epitome of what your books basically come down to is the doing, the action.
Right. Yeah, life only ever changes in the paradigm of action. So, and I really mean that, like ever, right? Life does not change because you feel happier. Life does not change because you feel more confident. And this is part of my problem with a lot of self-help stuff is, people insist that you need to be happy, or you need to believe in yourself, or you need to be confident. And if you work on those things first, the rest will come. And I say, nonsense. That's a complete nonsense. In fact, if you look in your life, you'll see that you've already accomplished things that you weren't confident about.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that you've already accomplished things with a negative mindset. You didn't even need to be positive. You actually did it anyway. You didn't think you could do it, but you did it.
Mm-hmm.
And on and on and on. Life changes in the paradigm of action. It's all in what you're currently doing and not doing. And that's where you should be measuring the game, not how you feel about it. You don't measure the game with, I feel as if it's going well. Nobody cares. How many basketball games or football games or baseball games where you thought it was going well and you felt pretty good about it and you lost?
Yeah.
Because the game is won and lost in the actions that were taken and not taken. And by the way, no action is in fact an action. Your life can be a reflection of what you're not doing as much as it is what you're doing.
Oh yeah. I love Aristotle. One of the quotes that's kind of helped me through is that we are what we repeatedly do. Excellence, therefore, is not an act but a habit.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I like it. It's good, right? Sometimes people get a little lost with the habit world because they think the trick is to break a habit. Human beings can't stop things. Right. Human beings can only do other things. So rather than breaking a habit, you might want to try replacing one.
Yeah, that's something that. So, for example, I quit smoking and drinking 3 weeks ago,
mm-hmm.
and it's been 3 weeks for me, and I feel better, but at the same time, I still want to have a drink here and there.
Right.
And the first week without nicotine was kind of hard, but the last couple weeks have been easier. And so what I've been replacing that with is like I'll buy myself a song off of like an MP3 or something like that I want to listen to.
Right. Well, I'll give you a little simple example of it, right? So It's like you tell yourself you're going to stop watching TV, okay?
Yeah.
Now, if you think about watching TV, it's an activity that's done in a certain space over a certain period of time, okay?
Mm-hmm.
So if you say to yourself, well, I'm going to stop watching TV, but at the same time, what you do every day is you go home, you sit in the sofa, and you watch the blank screen. All right, so I'm not watching TV. How long do you think you'd be able to keep it up?
Not very long.
Not very long at all, right?
Yeah.
So if you say, well, I'm not going to watch TV, and I'm not going to sit in front of the sofa, but for the 2 hours that I would normally watch TV, I'll just stand in the living room near the sofa and the TV. I'll just stand there. How long do you think you would last?
Not very long, huh?
Not very long at all. You'll end up back in that sofa and back in that TV. There's a gap in your life where television used to be that you haven't put anything in there.
Right.
So if you said, well, in that 2 hours where I used to watch TV, what I do now is I actually go to the park, I meet some mates, we shoot some hoops, and then we usually go for a coffee afterwards at Starbucks and we just shoot the breeze of the stuff that we do. That's what I do with that 2 hours now. In fact, I do that 3 nights a week. And that's basically what my life's about now. Like I play hoops, I drink coffee, and we talk about life. And I used to watch TV. I haven't stopped watching TV. I'm just now doing something else.
Yeah.
So that space and time that used to be devoted to television at one time in your life is now devoted to something else, and that something else will eventually become habitual.
Yeah, I've been using that time with writing and doing other things like exercise and stuff like that. So I've been filling that time in with something I felt like was better, for my life. And I feel better, but at the same time, like I don't want to just not. I don't know, like you said, it's not about so much breaking habits as replacing them, because you were doing something, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean that, I know it sounds crazy, but what you're saying, it sounds so much like common sense. But how many people are actually doing it? You know,
Yeah.
and I think what your message is that, hey, you can do this too. You know, it's not just, some
Right.
magic formula, like you said, unicorns and rainbows. I mean, it's
Correct. Right. Right. So there's a no matter how one might convince oneself, right, about how stuck one is, you're not stuck.
right.
It seems like you are, and I get that it seems like you are, and you might have told yourself and told other people that you are, but in fact, what you'll find is what's actually stuck is what you're talking about. Like you're looking at life from the same angle, expecting to see something different. If you keep looking at it from the same angle, if you keep looking at it from I can't, but I'm hopeful. Yeah, I mean, you'll get little bursts of hope and a whole lot of can't.
Right.
But if you look at life from, oh, it's on like Donkey Kong. I just need to work it out now and let me get into it and let me get sorting this out. And that's a whole different perspective. Right? So we don't realize, like, we'll talk about stuff like, and I do talk about this in the second book. I talk about how we will describe things as like, well, it's just my point of view, without really understanding what is a point of view. Like what is a point of view? Like it's a point, it's a location, it's somewhere that I'm viewing something from.
Like you said earlier, it's a snapshot in time. And that reminds me of, like, bodybuilders. When you see a photo of a bodybuilder, that's a photo of a certain moment in time.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, that person could be, could have lost all that by now for sure.
Yeah.
But I really want people to get, like, you're only as stuck as you agree that you are. And you have, you are you don't have potential like a belonging, right? Like you have toes. And you are a potential. That is, you exist as a potentiality. There's elements of you waiting to be explored, like waiting to be explored. And it's incumbent upon you, that is, it's your responsibility to explore that. And if you're going to talk yourself out of that exploration, it's too risky, I can't do it, I'm not smart enough, I don't have the money, I don't have the time, it'll take too long. Those are all reasons to talk yourself out of exploring your potentiality.
Yeah.
And that'll only be a problem for you when you're about 82 or 87 and knowing that you're in the last, times of your life and saying, why didn't I do it when I was 47? I had time. Why didn't I do it when I was 56? I had time. Why didn't I do it when I was 22? I had tons of time. And that's what you'll be left with. You'll be left with what you did. You'll be left with what you didn't do.
The regrets, yeah. I think it's so great that you share this stuff with other people. I know you say you have your newest book coming out in October called "Do the Work."
Yeah.
And is that, from my understanding, is that a hybrid of like a book, an audiobook, and a workbook?
So when I did the first book, Unbleep Yourself, I wanted to be able to apply it to some distinct things for people. I left you with the option of applying it. Okay, you can take this and apply it to your relationships. You can take this and apply it to your career. Yeah. You can take this and apply it to yourself. But what I wanted to do was actually give you a step-by-step way to do that, like how to work your way through that and how to identify, and this was what was critical to me. If you ask most people what they think they need to change their life, they can tell you. So I'll say, well, I just need a bit more confidence, or I need more finances, or it just needs to be a better time. Now, most people will tell you what they think they need. Invariably, that's not what they need, right? Because if it was, they'd already have done it. Mm-hmm. It's how they've explained it to themselves. And it's usually some either flaw with themselves or something too overwhelming with what they're dealing with, like their situation or circumstances. So I'm literally going to spoon feed you how to change your life. I broke life down into 3 sections, and we're going to get it worked in each of these sections. So it stands on the shoulders of the first book. And it's a workbook, but it's in a real kind of results workbook. Like, you will identify what you now need to do, what you can be relied upon for doing, and when you're going to get that done. Like, and you'll identify the sort of stuff that when you look at it, you're like, yep, that's a game changer for me. That'll change everything for me. And so I talk you through all the spaces of it, and then I give you some what I feel are really important understandings of certain things, which, as I talked about earlier, one of those things is forgiveness. So I actually talk to you in this book about how do you actually forgive someone? How do you do it?
Oh, wow.
And I'll talk you through the steps. This is what you need to do, and this is what you need to understand, and this is the angle you need to start coming from. And in the future, this is how you need to show up so that this is different. And really, like everything that I do, it's all about making it a philosophy heavy, but content light. So that is, this is, you don't have to read, War and Peace or something here to get to the bottom of your stuff. Right. I'm always pretty committed to give you something really powerful in about 30,000 words. So, my challenge as a writer isn't what to write, but more importantly, what not to write, so that it becomes heavy with stuff that's superfluous to what we're doing.
I noticed that when I first came across your first book, that's one of the things that appealed to me was how concise and clear you are about things. And then you also seem like, people talk about mindfulness and being present and things like that, but you seem like you're always present.
Well, there's no alternative.
Yeah. It's funny. I mean, like, that is, to me, that's one of the hardest things to do, because, we're constantly thinking about, like, things that we did, things that we're going to do, but being in the moment and being present, like, just for example, us talking today, right now, this has been one of the most engaging conversations that I've had with all of the different guests that I've had. It's like right on the top, 2 or 3 that I've had. And even Ed's shaking his head yes, because I mean he does a talk radio show too, and and you're right here I know we're on the phone, but you could be sitting right across from me as present as you are.
Yeah, look, and I mean this for you and for Ed and for everybody listening. You're always present. You're not always present for what's present.
Ah. Tell me about that. Tell me about that, because that's pretty deep there.
Well, so right now in this moment of time, you're either right with me and you and I are talking and we're deep in this conversation, or you're drifting off in thought right now. You're not drifting off to the past. Why not? Because it doesn't exist. There is no past. There's only right now. There's only ever been right now. Life is a series of right nows, and then you die. Right? You have a final right now.
Yeah.
And by the same token, there's no future. It's your imagination. And I know people are like, no, in the future I'm going to be better. No, you're going to be screwed.
Yeah.
Why? Because you've trained yourself to keep looking out there as if out there is the answer. What makes you think that when you are in that moment of right now, 20 years from now, you'll be doing something different? You won't. You'll be looking to the future then too. So you're always here, as I like to say, but you're not always available for what's here. That is, you're indulging some thought patterns about what's been, or you're indulging some thought patterns about what's to come. And what I say to people is, listen, if you give your attention, if you devote yourself to right now, the future will take care of itself. It'll take, you don't even have to worry about it. So that, what do I mean by that? I mean, when you're at work right now, you should do the absolute best job you can do right now. And if you do that right now, and right now, and right now, you won't be in that job for long. But if you right now are in this job, kind of doing your best, but sometimes not, because you're wondering about the end of the day and what you're going to do tonight, and then what's happening at the weekend, you're going to be in that job for a lot longer.
Mm.
So life is a series of right nows, and then you die. That's how this goes. And I know that can be a little bit of a mind trip, if you like. You're kind of like, whoa, wait a minute here. But if you just look in the reality of your existence, the only say you have in your life is right now. Who you're going to be, what you're going to do, when, right now. So if you want to be patient, you should be patient right now. You shouldn't be trying to be patient. There's no such thing. You should just be patient right now. Why? Because that's the only thing you can do right now is be patient if that's your choice.
Yeah.
Or be dynamic, or be powerful, or, be industrious. It's all right now. One of the reasons why people can't stick to a diet is because their mind starts to wander into the future, and they start to question whether they think they can sustain it. The only time you need to be on a diet is right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's so simple, but it's so powerful, and it's the truth,
Well, yeah. I mean, if you keep bringing yourself to right now, you're here for right now. You're here for what's available. Most people, you walk into Starbucks, for instance, you're not there for what's available in Starbucks. You're not there for, there's people. I could talk to these people and enrich my life. And I'm telling you, when you start to get yourself here, like, I'm going to say get yourself here, get yourself here for what's here. Mm-hmm. Life slows down. Like, you start to be in what you have. And by the way, you get to influence what you're in a lot more. And you get to have a say in what you're in a lot more. Mm. But if you're just going to be another hamster on the wheel, hoping that one day this all turns out for you, you're in for a major disappointment.
Oh my gosh. I could not agree with you more. I practice meditation and mindfulness, and I pray, and that what you just said to me is so true, because that's one of the things that I found. When you're talking about, like, you have, I guess not, you didn't say it like this, but more, you create more time in a way. Things slow down, and it's the same moment, it's the same 30 seconds, the same 5 hours or whatever. But when you're present and you're, like you said, right now, what are we doing right now? I'm talking to you on the phone.
Well, I'm going to give you a snapshot. Okay.
Yeah.
There you are. You're on a phone call with your friends. Right? How you doing? And then they say something, and then you start worrying about, oh man, after this call, I need to remember. And then so in that 30 seconds, they may have talked for 15. You heard 2. Then you talked for 3. And then they said something, but you were gone by that time. You actually spoke to your friend for about a dozen seconds in that 30-second period.
Yeah.
And then you wonder why your life, like, I'm not getting stuff done. You're not here getting stuff done. You're getting a little bit of stuff done, and then your mind's somewhere else. That is, your thought patterns are somewhere else. You're here, but your mind is wandering to the future, the past. That is, you are present, but your thoughts aren't.
Yeah.
And you can't influence the future. You can't, like, jump to next Thursday, right? You can't be like, oh, I think I'll fix next Thursday. You can only handle next Thursday. You can only handle July in July. Right. But people may say, well, you can prepare. I know, but you can only prepare right now.
Yeah.
That's all right now. Life is a series of right nows. It's right now, right now, right now. Like in a marriage, a relationship, I love you right now. 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 And in those moments where I might be challenged, like maybe we're arguing, I'm not getting along, I love you right now. I don't have to sustain that for my life. I don't have to say, I'm not going to live like this for the rest of my life. I only have to live like this right this second.
Yeah.
And handle it right now.
I think that's amazing. I mean, that if I were to if somebody asked me what is Gary John Bishop about, that is what I'm going to start telling people he's about right now. I mean, because really, those two words summarize and boil down everything that I've read and listened to in your audiobooks and your books. You just, I think that they're a great fit. And I mean, I know I'm going to plug the heck out of you right now, Gary, because it's helped me change my life and my behaviors and things like that. And I use those principles on a daily basis. And I'm not going to say it works 100% of the time because it doesn't for me. I'm still working on things, but right now, I mean, I love that. Hey, this is how you can change things one thing at a time. Like you said, if you're having an argument with your spouse, well, I love you right now. It's and I love that whole thought of you're drifting off. I mean, a lot of stuff is on autopilot. Our days are on autopilot. And like the example you're talking about with the phone call with your friend, how many of the same phone calls, how many of the same conversations have you had with the phone call?
Well, a simple one is if somebody asks you how you're doing, what's your always response?
Yeah.
What do you always say?
We always say fine. Right? We always say I'm fine, right?
Right. But if you ever actually stopped and said, well, let me check in for a second here. Right, so usually when I go to like sometimes I have to go to like corporate meetings or I have to do leadership groups for big corporations. And when I usually meet these people, the first thing they ask me is how you doing?
Right.
And my answer every time is the same. I always say terrible. And then they go, really? And I say, no, I'm just making sure you're paying attention.
Yeah.
Right? Because we don't. I want to wake people up. Like, they're like, oh, really? Like, what can I do for you? Like, okay, good. Now you're awake. Let's talk.
Yeah.
Right? Because then, and you consider that kind of talk and those kind of behaviors are everywhere in your life. You'll see you're just basically a you machine, and you need to wake that machine up frequently.
Yeah. Well, Gary, I love talking with you. I appreciate you being on the show today. Where can people check out your stuff? Where's the easiest place for them to check out your stuff?
Yeah, well, obviously, Instagram's a great source for people. The Instagram page is actually very vibrant. There's a lot of engagement in there. And I put a lot of stuff up every day or other day. You'll see something else up there to inspire you or to make you think. Also on Facebook. And then you can also jump onto my website, GaryJohnBishop.com.
Mm-hmm.
And on that website, you can join my mailing list. You can get updates on what I'm up to. I have a very vibrant community of people who are interested in what I'm doing and the difference that I'm out to make. And they use the work. They use the work to improve their lives. So if you're not following me in social media and or my mailing list, you're missing out. You got to jump in there and be part of that. It doesn't cost you anything. You don't have to actively participate. You can watch and listen and, like that great stuff. I do videos and all kinds of great stuff. I'm committed that people get this work in a way that's reasonably priced. Like you buy a $20 book and follow me online. Buy another $20 book and follow me online. I don't do, $10,000 mastermind groups and stuff like that. I don't do it, and I'm not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, that's one of the things I liked about you was you're very down to earth and humble about it. And the first book is called Unf Yourself, Get Out of Your Head and Into Your Life. The second book is Stop Doing That End Self-Sabotage and Demand Your Life Back. And then the third one you said is coming out in October, and it's called Do the Work.
It's called Do the Work. It's got a pretty long subtitle. It's the official unrepentant, butt-kicking, no-kidding, change your life sidekick to unbleep yourself.
Oh, I love it. I love it. That is amazing. Well, Gary, thank you so much for being on the show today. And I really appreciate the conversation. And I love that right now thing. I'm going to start using that right now.
All right. Well, that's where you'll change your life right now.
That's awesome. All right. Well, I hope you have a great day, and thanks again.
All right, you guys. Thanks for having me.
All right. Bye-bye.